Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the end of March. We officially get to do that. Where you may not realise this before, but me and Joey we run the months. So when we decide that's it, it's the end of the month. We announce it like this.
Yeah.
It's an important job.
When was the last time we actually had one of these at the actual end of the month? Like last
I was going to
day.
say it's an important job, and we do it very badly. Last month we entirely forgot.
Right.
And
On top of that.
Yes. But so there we go. Technically, February never ended, so it's the longest February ever. But it's now the end of March, and that means the ID update. So thank you for coming and joining us, and Joey, thank you for joining me.
Of course, as
So,
always.
hello to Kara in the audience. Nice to have you. Nice to have you with us.
Hello.
So, do you know what? Let's end this kind of wandering introduction, and let's start with the question that no one ever likes to be asked. Joey, how was your March?
Oh, I thought we were going into beer.
That is the format, isn't it? No, is that the?
It's why I bring two every time.
Let's follow the format because you are indeed correct. Joey, what are you drinking this evening?
What am I drinking? All right, I'm starting. So actually, I've never got to do this one because I never really had it in stock. My favorite beer of all time. Absolute favorite beer of all time. Top of the list. Which is Bristol Brewing's Laughing Lad Scottish Ale.
Nice.
I don't really have anything more than that.
Fair enough.
It was just The only funny thing is like when I was dating, we would I would sit at a bar with my friend and we would talk about how we compared our respective people we were seeing in terms of the bar coasters and the quality of the drink that was on the coaster. So you can have like your Coors Lights and your Pabst Blue Ribbons, and you get like your Russian and then like your top tier stuff like your Russian Rivers and depending on the brewery. And then, for me, like Laughing Lab was always like, oh, this one's promising. So it's actually really special that it just happened to be that since my wife was born in Scotland. She was born in Dundee. So I get to call her my Laughing Lab. As far as the coaster, it was a Scottish ale. Works beautifully.
Perfect. There we go.
All right, you go.
I am going to be enjoying this rather nice Reserve Ruby Quevedo Port. Which I'm rather looking forward to. I do like a
nice.
It's one of those. It's one of those months where I kind of got to when I could go out and buy beer. Got a couple of bottles of port left over from Christmas though, so
rock it out.
Next thing we knew, a bottle of port was coming out from underneath the stairs.
Nice. I like it. All right, now to answer your other question, my March sucked. So like I'm not gonna be nice about it. It was a frustrating little month for a lot of silly, stupid reasons. So special thanks to people who like kind of helped me get through it, like a lot. But some of that's probably stuff we talk about because like hiring and what in the world's happening in the job market, that might pop up. But in the meantime, cheers.
Cheers, and with that, let's roll the intro. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT.
Man, I love that beer.
So, yeah, let's kick off the episode there. Thanks for joining us, Andres. Nice to see you in the crowd as well. And throughout the episode goes, if there's topics you want to discuss, do throw them into the chat. If there's things you've seen this month you want to jump into, let's bring your thoughts on board as well. Let's start there. So I think we've probably both got a bit of a preamble ramble opening, maybe.
Preamble ramble. I like that. We need to just create a graphic of like the preamble ramble because now we've done like 4 episodes in a row.
I'm not sure we're allowed to because it's directly nicked from another kind of show like this. I think having a graphic might be a bit too much of a I'm stealing your
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, no, that's shout out to Trapped Under Plastic if you like Plastic Toy Soldiers. Fantastic fortnightly podcast. Very, very much better Sorry, Joey, better than what we do here. But
Whatever.
they're also, it's what they do full time. They have a studio. It's a different kettle of fish.
Got it.
Cool. So let's dive into our legally distinct version of the preamble ramble. And Joey,
We're switching to you know what? Maybe we'll figure out the name.
this is it. The wandering opening bit of the show that no one knows what to call. There we go. That feels more like we named it now.
I like it.
There we go. We'll get a graphic for that for next time. So
Absolutely gonna make one.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
The scum of villainy of the folks trying to take people's money on LinkedIn. I like that.
Okay. Did that come in the chat? That isn't showing in my chat. I so hope
see
that's
it
in the chat.
I see it like a melon.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I like that. I think that is a fantastic topic. Let's do that in the main body of the episode.
I'm talking about I want to talk about like the scum and villainy of people who like I want to give me money who are asking for people to give money to. Because that's why my March sucked. Is that there's so many people looking for jobs, like looking for people to hire, not jobs. I'm gonna the other side. Because when the economy goes down, like a bunch of people like lose. Two industries actually get really ramped up, and one is marketing and the other is training. Because when you do a big staff cut, it's not just a staff cut to drop your overhead. Sometimes it's also a reallocation of the resources you have. So you get a lot of new people in the areas that they want to focus on more. So you need training for that. So it creates more positions. And the fact that like nobody's following through. I don't know why nobody's following through, and that drives me nuts. It's driving me insane. Like, I don't get anything from like, I'm used to at least getting like within a week or two, at least a week, some sort of like pre-screen or anything, even 2 weeks. Now I'm like 3 or 4 with some. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, I get that like ghosting is just prevalent and a lot more insane, but even like I've even been gone through like some of the interview processes and I just don't get follow-ups for like weeks at a time. This is new. This is a new one. It's annoying.
This is the thing, and like it's tricky because I think it's easy to get into kind of like big sweeping statements like if someone applies for a job they should 100% get a human response. It's like that is fine in your head until you have like 2,000 applicants.
Yeah,
like that it just doesn't work.
I tried the easy apply thing for a job that I had once, and that was the dumbest experience. That was just bad. I'm so glad I didn't. I'm so glad we don't ask for human connections.
This is it. Like realistically, to be fair to the other side, they can't do that. However, if, as you say, you've gone through an interview, perhaps several rounds of interview, clearly you've already been through some kind of vetting. They felt it was worthwhile to talk to you once. So even just you haven't got it, sorry message.
Yeah, I'll even take I will even take the automated like you haven't got it. I have no clue how like that software works, but I feel like there isn't like a send email to everybody who hasn't moved on to next round button, because I would love that.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Like even just next round button, like not even we've made the decision. Maybe you haven't, but I'd love to. I hate knowing that I've got like 30 apps out there and I only actually know the status of like 4 of them. Like,
yes.
Okay. I feel like way overqualified for some of those positions. You guys are getting me for cheap. I have no problem if you tell me like, no, arg.
But you want to know. It kind of amazes me that in 2023, we don't have a system that allows for clear kind of like a visual pathway when applying for a job, considering how much junk you have to fill out quite often when applying for a job through online application platforms they make you use. Despite
Workday, what the heck?
This is it. Because often you've now got an account. It's like, right, I don't want an account. What point does an account have if I can't track my progress through this application?
Right.
It's unless they just assume that you so desperately want to work there, you're going to regularly apply for other jobs if you're unsuccessful.
Oh my god!
If you ever want to apply for another job here, so is that not just weird and awkward?
Like, I've got it. That actually, one of the jobs was a company called Givelify that I got like to the tail end of their training management program, and I didn't get it. I was like, oh man, heartbreaker. And then they had one just recently for like an email thing. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I didn't push the button. I wanted to.
This is it. Here's an
But
interesting insight. So from Kara, had 300 applicants for an internship at her company.
mhm.
Overwhelming to go through the applications. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's the other element. Like, God, I can't even imagine like the scale element to it. So I mean, I get that. That's kind of why you go through like the workday system and why you do all that nonsense so they can filter certain things out. But like
this is it.
again,
But
may
it's
not
not.
need a message.
Yeah, but and equally, you're not gonna put 300 people through a multi-step interview process. You know,
God no.
you know, I think at that stage where you are whittling through applications, that you realistically you're not gonna get even an auto response necessarily, because as we all know, there may be a official way to apply for a job, but people are going to apply for it from all sides. They're going to message the recruitment agent, they're going to come in from
Mhm.
different agencies, they're going to whatever it might be. So getting messages to everyone is tricky.
Yeah.
But I think the minute you go past that, the minute you have met them and gone, I want to speak to you following your application for this role, I do think there's an inherent just kind of social expectation of just oh, actually, da, da, da. And like, I'll put my hand, I'm not perfect at that.
Yeah. Same.
Like it's real tricky to keep
Mhm.
track of everything and go back to everyone at the timeline you agreed to and that kind of thing. But it is, at least at least in larger companies, I think they actually have less of an excuse around that, because
Yeah.
they'll often interview like 20, maybe 30 people. If you had time to organize and run 20 to 30 interviews, you have time to drop 15 to 16 of them an email saying, hey, sorry, you weren't successful.
Or even like if you are going to pay that much for one of those big old systems,
Mm.
you have time to hit a button that says no, and like have to
Yep.
go through a thing. And like I have no clue if those systems do that, but
I know, for instance, there's a platform in the UK called Read. I know that does. Like,
mhm.
if they just apply through there, you can, even at the application stage, you can say, no, your application was not successful. And it will just send them an email saying, sorry, you've not been invited for an interview.
Mhm. I've had a few that did that. My worst one was one that had me go through like an hour long like personality assessment, and then at the end of it, it's just instantly say like, no, you didn't get it. I'm like, what the hell did you just do? That should just straight up be illegal.
Well, yeah, it really should. I don't. I'm not keen on those. I think there's a lot of they, whether or not they have value in other places, I'm not an expert. I don't know. But they, to my opinion, should not be allowed in an interview scenario. Like, you shouldn't be profiling people and going, no, we don't want that profile in our business. That's not cool. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
like my situation is different than yours, like all the time, and I can adapt. Like you adapt personalities, and
yeah.
we adapt leadership tactics.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those real odd things that I think. Oh, I've had this. Put in the
Yep,
job description. Do not message me. Um, Immediately you get hundreds. Yep, absolutely.
I've had that.
Um, yeah, it's when you see that happening that you realize why big businesses do have big automated systems to manage application, and they just ignore everything else. I think it's easy to go, oh, the human approach is better. It's like, not at volume, it isn't, because the human approach becomes someone's full-time job. You know,
Right.
and if you are in a position where you can have one person whose full-time job is just to hire for this role, great. But
Mhm.
most businesses have not got that.
Yeah, I know that I'm asking
Yeah,
for a scalable. I'm asking for a one-to-one solution for a scaled problem.
yeah. But I think,
Um,
it's there are different contact after interview. I think is different to this. Like, when
yeah.
people are just applying, yeah,
Mhm.
it's if they're not, if they can't follow the simple instruction of do not do this thing, I
Mhm.
don't understand why people think that would be good at an early stage. And I think a lot of this comes from like bad LinkedIn advice,
Yeah,
around, oh, make sure you get in touch with the hiring manager. It's like,
I've got some other
no,
things.
like
I do
that
that.
that yeah, like this it can work out well, but it might not. Like, there is a reason the hiring manager is hiring right now, i.e. they need more in manpower and they don't need to waste time talking to you, letting them
Right.
know that you've applied for the job. That's not always, 'cause I got it all the time. We were like hiring at I am, for permanent roles, and telling, oh, can we have a half-hour chat about the role? No,
No,
That's
you
called
can't.
an interview, and if you get one, we'll be in touch. Like, you just, that's not a reasonable expectation. And the fact that you think it is shows a real misunderstanding of what working in a business is like. Like, you
Right.
really think the hiring manager's got half an hour for everyone who might be interested in applying to their job?
Yeah.
Really? Like, unless you're applying for like a senior leadership position, in which case that might be a good way to go, because it is often more about the relationship than it is any tangible skill set.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just be realistic with that stuff, I guess.
I like this line.
Um,
It's very true. It's possible to measure how many times trying to reach the hiring manager may have cost you the candidacy. I feel even, I feel like there are a few that, man, I had just kind of even nailed to at least pre-screen it. And back in my days, like I kind of screwed up, and they're like, oh, I know this guy. He can go away. It's like, for me, I related to going like before the internet was much of a thing, like going into like the game. For me, it was going into GameStop. For me, it was all the people who would constantly come to GameStop and says, I can't, I really would want to work for you today. Yeah, I would want to work for you someday. And then finally I have a position opening, like, hey, I came in every day. I was like, yeah, you were annoying every day. I didn't want to see you the 30th time you came in. I don't want to see you every day because I'm paying you for it.
yeah,
No,
this is
go away.
this and this is kind of the issue, I guess, with all of these things, is that so much of this advice either comes from a different time
Mhm.
when that was more doable, because LinkedIn was not everyone and their dog was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, overall, I think is a net positive. I think the growth of the platform has been fantastic. It's
Mhm.
allowed, a lot of people who are probably here in this conversation this evening probably got here or got to know each other in some way through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
However, it does mean that best practice for LinkedIn has to evolve.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
don't think it has. And I think some of the people peddling advice know that, but peddle it anyway. And some people are genuinely spreading bad advice they were given and don't know it's now bad advice.
There you go. There you
You know?
go. There's your scum and villainy. People who know stuff is bad advice.
Oh no, I feel like scum and villainy we should reserve for another group of people on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, I'm very confident of who. Like all
Those
these
that have
people are like looking at it
successfully
from
bottled their snake oil and sold it for much, much more cash.
right.
Um,
I mean, I look at it as like you want to build, trying to build a relationship and having that relationship pay off. In
yeah,
most circumstances, it works because again, that's a one-to-one solution. But this is a scaled problem. It's a nightmare. It doesn't scale for the person on the other side. Respect that. And I've screwed that up enough times.
no, this
But
is
I guess
it. Yeah.
thinking about like the main topic for the day of it was like, I
Mm.
wonder if that's something AI could fix. I don't think that's the main topic, but like a topic. But
Yeah,
maybe that's
no,
something AI could
absolutely.
fix or help
Yeah, I
with.
wonder if it could be. Certainly, it's no. Well, my month was a little bit different, I guess. So today was my first day working with the people at I Am Learning. My last day. What am I talking about? First day.
I was
First day.
like, what?
We've looped. We've looped. No, it's my last day working with the people that I Am Learning. So
Wow.
that's 3.5 years done. Which was a little bit strange. But good. But good. I must say, it was.
Forward progress, right?
Exactly. This is it. I leave them in the capable hands of Judy Liu, who's taken over there.
She's
She's doing a
amazing.
fantastic job.
So
She is. She's doing a fantastic job with the development and instructional design team, and doing lots of new and exciting things. Um, changing authoring tools, moving to a whole new way of developing content. It's very exciting stuff. So naturally, I left. Um, no, so that was cool. At the start of the month, I got to pretend to be a voice actor for a week. That was interesting. That was
oh,
I got to do some voices for some animations that are going to come out. So that will be
I am
exciting
stuff,
when they
or is
do
it?
come around. No, for another company that's going to be doing some kind of fantasy animations.
Ooh,
So I got to put on silly voices for a couple of hours, which was nice.
nice.
Um, this is
I
it.
would put on silly voices in about a month and a half,
There we
as
go.
my daughter will be born by then, hopefully.
Slightly different. I would maybe avoid the gnomish barbarian. That's not gonna probably help her get to sleep.
Gotta raise her right. She needs to know how to be able to like sleep and decompress under pressure.
This is it. Plus, those temporary hit points, they can be a real help. That's sorry, D&D joke for anyone anyone in the audience there.
My wife
So
would
yeah,
kill me.
it's I'm not gonna lie, it's been kind of like a good but quite stressful month with a lot going on. It's one of those kind of like, this is fine, but I'm quite glad it's over now kind of times. So that's been good. So yeah, I mean, let's dive into some topics. So some time ago now, the 2023 Global Sentiment Survey initial data was released, and being good and diligent hosts of this show, we completely missed it. In fact, we didn't run a show that month.
Yeah, we just skipped it.
we just thought, this major survey that's been going for years, there's no reason to do a show this month. Yeah, no, we just I felt, I want to say it was that evening, either I messaged you or you messaged me, I can't remember which. It was like, do you know what we forgot?
I think I shot a message. He was like, I think we missed this.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, but the good news is now we can talk about it this evening. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the initial survey results. Do you want to kick us off, Joey, with your initial thoughts, having had a look at them?
I hate that the metaverse is on it. I hate that, like I hate, like they're showing, like, the website shows like the top 16 like ranks in like previous, compared to like previous year's ranking, and like number 14 is just the metaverse. I'm like, oh, shut up. The thing is darn dead already. It blows my mind. It is wild to see I don't know how I feel about like seeing AI, because it's one of those things that we talked about it last year, of it started to trickle in.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's interesting though is, like, now I actually think it's being executed in a way that's more relevant.
Okay.
Because that's not something we really, it's something we always concluded at some point, is like, AI is kind of neat in some kind of concept, but the executions of it don't seem to make a lot of sense right now. And now, kind of suddenly in the last 2 months, like, actually, wait, maybe they make, maybe it make a lot of sense, and they make like tangible sense. It's not just, the thing I really like about AI specifically is, it's not like it's yay AI things are happening. It's like, hey, now people are applying it to stuff that is useful.
Yeah.
Like, and help kick off like content writing. Like, okay, that's, now you're somewhere. Like, that's cool. I can appreciate that. Skills-based talent management, learning analytics. Shut up. Don't start with me that's going to be a thing unless you actually know what to do with it. Kind of like AI. The fact that more people know what to do with AI, I think, than they know what to do with learning analytics is, unless something has changed, unless I see something out there, I was like, oh, let's really apply these things.
Yeah, I think it is tricky, isn't it? Because ultimately, being a sentiment survey, we're looking at, and the exact wording here is somewhere, I think.
What would be the hot? Let's see. What would hot in workplace L&D?
I'm sorry, yeah, the exact wording is probably quite important.
The survey was answered by 4,000 people ish with 103 questions. What will be hot in workplace L&D in 2023?
There we go.
What is your biggest L&D challenge in 2023? And which of these best describes where you do most of your work?
Yeah. So this is question one in effect. What we're looking at is what people think, and I think in that regard, I think there are some positives. For one thing, this reskilling and upskilling is still number one, which I have huge frustration about, but it is going down. And actually, one of the interesting things is below this, there's some like deeper dives into specific data points. And one of the things it points out is that this was massively underpinned by the kind of East Asian world. And if it hadn't been, it would have dropped double the amount. So it fell half a percentage point this year. It would have fallen a whole percentage point. Which is really interesting, because I see a lot of people talking about reskilling and upskilling, and obviously they are broadly speaking important, but I do worry that sometimes And I'll give you the example. I've had a conversation recently that is, the whole idea of a needs analysis is outdated. It's no longer actual words in fashion. And whilst it's still out there, businesses are now more focused on reskilling and upskilling.
I immediately wanted to say on fleek just to like really dive in. Remember
This is it.
that was popular?
And I cannot understand where this idea that reskilling and upskilling is not training came from. And
Yeah.
the idea that you can reskill and upskill without a needs analysis is just the most insane concept I've ever heard. But I think it comes from the fact that reskilling and upskilling have become such powerful buzzwords. They've almost tried to break away from the concept of training to become something else, which I kind of have an issue with. Because training was always about upskilling and reskilling. You train to develop a skill.
What's going on is I'm looking at like the top 9
Mm-hmm.
of these things, and they're all like in the realm of like the conceptual and experience stuff. So like reskill, upskill, that's conceptual experience, skills based. Even AI kind of might be a little tricky because that can go a lot of directions. That can go in how you actually execute training versus how you guide people through it. Because I've seen that done. I've seen both ways done. But learning analytics, that's all about experience concepts. Collaborative social learning is kind of a blend of both a little bit. But like you look at the bottom, and the bottom is execution. Micro learning, that's an execution strategy. Learning experience platforms is an execution strategy. Virtual and augmented reality, execution strategy. Mobile delivery is an execution strategy. The metaverse is, I'm pretty confident, is an execution strategy. Not a lot of none of the top 9 is an execution strategy, with maybe the exception of kind of 6. 5 and 6 kind of teeter, I think.
Yeah, I would to an agree. Yeah, I think I would somewhat agree with that. I think,
but like that's needs analysis. Like,
yeah,
you don't care if you're so into like how am I appreciating and absorbing. Why aren't you trying to answer the question early?
I think this is it. So I think that coming down, it was always for me in my mind, reskilling and upskilling was always an oddity because that could just say training to my mind. Like what other training exactly were you delivering? That was not like if you were delivering training that had absolutely no skills based element to it. Way to go, I guess. I certainly in my experience anyway, in the workplace, the focus has always been on skills, which is where it should be. People need to be able to do their job, do it safely, do it well, do it compliantly, all this kind of thing. And of course, there's a knowledge element to all of that. But this hard separation between training versus reskilling and upskilling, I think, is unhelpful. Actually, in building a more cohesive sort of training ecosystem within the workplace. Like if we just viewed that collectively as, yeah, that's what training does, it would be a much more powerful offering.
Well, it's always a matter of, so for me, I read that as what feels like an obligation and what doesn't. Because that's the way that's always been trained, educated me when it was considered like a benefit. Hey team, you guys all get 48 hours of like training hours that you're welcome to use. That wasn't an obligation. That was just like, that was a nice to have. And reskilling and upskilling, I would argue, is also in that realm of nice to have, where training always comes across as an obligation. I have to train somebody. I don't have to reskill them. And maybe that's where the difference is. Maybe that's why it's created the separation that it has. The mental thought process around the beginning of it, which is also why needs assessments are probably getting yelled at. There's a thought process that doesn't look like it's leading to the creation of something.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe. I guess if I'm honest, I guess if that is the case, I'm almost more annoyed because I thought as an industry, we should have a bit more of a backbone. Like it's important that I think you could make the argument that that's important outwardly facing. If there's a problem in your business with the term training, by all means consider changing it to whatever you want. happy fun time, upskilling time, doing as little work as possible for as long as possible time, whatever you want to call it, to get people excited, fine, whatever. But this survey wasn't of people taking content, it was from us. It was from L&D professionals. And I think we should be able to, I don't know, just not buy. Saying that, I say we should be able to not buy in buzzwords. In at number 14, the metaverse.
Yeah, like I think I can actually, or I think I might have to do a little ounce of digging, but you might even remember. I think I can actually prove that this is a problem, and it doesn't matter, because now I'm looking at AI, and I'm thinking, I was like, oh, maybe I'm thinking about it a little bit too hard. Maybe it is just because it's buzzwords. Because what was it last year? It was VR. Augmented reality. We complained about it constantly. VR was, everyone was talking about VR. Now it's 13. What was it before? Mobile. It was mobile. Like, that was still you and I would do casts, and we would chat, and we would be baffled why mobile delivery was just in the kind of standing that it was. Execution strategy, or buzzword execution strategy. Buzzword execution strategy. AI, probably a buzzword execution. God, I hope it's not, but I know people are thinking about Synthesia.
Yeah.
It's like a buzzword execution strategy. And I love Synthesia, just not as the whole answer.
I think this is it. Like, I think part of the issue is, and do you know what, actually, let's scroll down the page, because there's a really interesting look here at AI. Look at this over the past, what's that, 6 years, 7 years? What's happened to the AI result? So we peaked over in 2019 and then fell like a stone. Grew a little bit last year, and then this year it catapulted up. So obviously part of this is, when do you do the survey? Survey. So the survey for this time was done just as ChatGPT exploded into the world.
Yep.
So obviously it caught some natural upswing there. But when you think back to this kind of time, this is when 17, 18, 19, all the promise of early AI was there. It's going to revolutionize the world, blah, 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 blah. COVID hit, and we completely ignored the space, because everything in our world suddenly became, oh crap, we can't get people together in a room. We've got to just jump on Zoom. We've got to put everything into Rise. We've got to create it quickly. And so it shows in that sense how vapid our attention span as an industry actually is, and perhaps how poor of a judge we are of what's the future going to be, which is why we'll have a crack at it in this episode, obviously. I think it's part of the reason why everyone in the world is like, oh my God, I never knew AI was going to be this like this when ChatGPT came out, is because we literally spent 3 years ignoring it during the pandemic.
Go ahead.
And therefore, guess what? Everyone working in the AI world wasn't really affected or particularly slowed down by the pandemic. In fact, if anything, they went, what's that? Everyone's using online services, data mine, and massively jumped forwards. So we can't really be surprised that they came out of this side of that situation with these incredible jumps forward. And I don't even necessarily think that all of this is just hype. My issue is that I think, as you said, Joey, a lot of people are thinking Synthesia, tools that exist today. And actually, some of the tools that exist today are cool. They're good fun. Some of them even offer some genuine, immediate, short-term value. But when I think about what I'm excited about in AI, it's not what's available now. It's the potential of what's powering the stuff that's available now and what that could be integrated into. I don't want to go somewhere or access ChatGPT and risk it being down or slow or spit out nonsense, like when they put it into Bing and it immediately had like teenage tantrum arguments with people, whether or not they liked it. What I want to see,
when I put anything into Bing, usually my results are pretty garbage.
Exactly, this is it. But what I want to see is that kind of power put into integrated models. I want clippy back, basically, but running on a really complex AI model, which hopefully is what Microsoft Copilot will be when that comes out
Very
fully.
cool. I love Suarez's AI following a Gartner hype cycle. I would love to analyze some of these tools from the Gartner hype cycle. Which I don't know if like the hype cycle is specifically a word per se, but if you're not familiar with the like the Gartner quadrants, the magic quadrants, they are it's like it's a 2x2 grid. Top it's done by going up is the ability to execute, and the bottom is like the completeness of vision. So like companies and their technologies and their offerings will be analyzed in their ability to actually execute on them, and then the completeness of their vision. And in the top left is your challengers. So they've got a great ability to execute, but like the vision itself is kind of cookie cutter-ish. Bottom is like your niche players, or I should say, challengers up top like execute phenomenally. They really go well above and beyond in the stuff they're good at, but they're very honed in on the stuff that they're good at. Down below that, your bottom left, that's your niche players. I know what I'm good at, and I just stay with it. I'm like, that's it. I don't try to break that mold. Bottom right, which is probably where AI is at, are your visionaries. There's your visionary companies. Phenomenal vision. Wow, you've got craziness that you're thinking about, but the ability to execute isn't there. And then your top right is your leader category. You are truly above and beyond. You are thinking outside the box, and you can execute well outside of that box. It'd be so cool to think about each one of these and place them in a Gartner quadrant mindset. That'd be pretty cool, because I would put AI in visionaries mode right now. Can't quite execute like all the stuff you said. They can't execute on it, but you look at like the innovation where it could go. That'd be pretty cool.
Because like even now, like I watched an interesting video yesterday from Discover eLearning. Really cool, like technical content there. If you want to do fun things with storyline, great page here on YouTube. What they were doing was effectively using the Chat GPT API rather than the actual interface to on the spot generate questions in their quiz through JavaScript calls. So rather than writing question banks into Storyline, every time someone landed on that page of the course, ChatGPT would generate a question for them based on the content. Now, it's very clever, because this is most of it, it's phenomenally clever. However, are we actually at the point as people who supposedly design learning experiences where we're like, yep, I don't care what question my user gets asked, I'll just let the AI decide what question, not even from a selection of questions, just write a new question, new set of answers every single time. Like even technically clever, but the ID in me kind of shivered at the thought of, I actually have no idea what that AI is going to ask that person.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're checking, and I don't know if they're going to check something that I need them to.
Exactly.
Like I need them to know.
This
like
is
my learning objectives are at risk.
Pretty much, yeah. However, the flip side, and we did ask, in 99% of courses, the questions are shite anyway, so does it matter? So there's that. But actually, the technical side of it is where I ended up being more concerned. How regularly does ChatGPT go down?
Right.
So what if I just get to that slide and ChatGPT is currently busy? I can just not answer a question. That's, I think it throws a lot of, at the current time, it throws a lot of challenges into that. I couldn't, for instance, in all kind of honesty, put out a product to the market and say, hey, sometimes that question slide is just not going to happen.
Yeah,
like
I've built things like that. Maybe it's a matter of like, see, because you said it, and I'm like in the middle ground of like maybe not AI generated, but algorithmic. Because I'd love to do algorithmically generated questions. Not that the question itself needs to be algorithmic, but the quiz in as total would be algorithmic. For example, if I'm going through a course, and like as the quiz is generating, I'd like to be able to detect whether or not you recap something or whether or not you spent an absurdly long amount of time on a piece of content, because I want to be able to quiz you on that content, assuming that you probably were trying to wrap your mind around a little bit more than normal. That would be cool. I'd love to be able to, like,
That
in
already
the moment.
exists.
Huh?
All that already exists. We don't need AI for that.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's like algorithmic.
Yeah, but it exists. Who used it? Where was it? Or at least the end effect works. The actual courses themselves are hit and miss, but ATD did a whole bunch of micro modules covering very specific things, and they
Okay.
do exactly that. They ask you, they give you content, and they give you questions, and based on your answers and how long you look at things, they ask you different questions along the way, or
Oh, okay.
repeat certain questions and all sorts of things. So stuff like that, I feel like
Just like that.
but I can totally see the value in that 100%. And I'm not saying that in the future what we just described isn't both technically and in terms of content a great idea, like
Mm.
phenomenal, but I kind of feel like we're rushing to do it now when actually the technology isn't quite good enough.
Mm.
Like you said, the vision's there,
Vision
the
is-
promise is there. I can totally see the value of what we're trying to do, but by implementing it now, are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Because the first time that gets rolled out to a big business and it doesn't work, that's it. It's branded. It doesn't work. Think
Right.
about all the effort we've put in as an industry to prove that e-learning as a concept is not bad. All the times we've had to have conversations about e-learning can work, e-learning can be effective, e-learning can be efficient. Do we really want to have that with a whole new world of technology rather than just waiting a little bit until it actually reliably works?
So for me,
Um,
I wrap that around the idea of, um, it's not feature creep. It's kind of the opposite of it. It's basically when you don't, God, I don't remember the term. In agency land, in like SaaS land, for me, when it came to things like RFPs and product renewals and stuff like that, it's because our clients would be so like low on the what they knew and what they were able to do spectrum, they never actually were
mm,
able to access the power of what we told them. Like, they came in, we sell all of these features and all these abilities of our SaaS technology, but we never actually educate them well enough on the base that they never get to that point. So when they come back and kind of analyze like the value of our platform, where we sold them up here, but they were trapped here, they only can look at this stuff. And that's why the Gartner hype quadrant, that's the hype quadrant. That's why the magic quadrant's so valuable. It's because that ability to execute. But like maybe that's another methodology for our industry of, we've got all this tech out there. Not even like, I didn't even know that was a thing that like existed that way. I didn't know that, and here I am thinking about like other technologies and further solutions down the line
mm,
that are trying to perform that exact same thing. How much of the industry just doesn't know what the hell's out there, and isn't aligned to, like, they don't know, they like, I don't know if I would need that. I wouldn't be thinking to need that. But the value proposition and the inspiration
yeah.
of that. Hey, industry, this is a thing that exists. You might not have ever come up with the need that it existed, but it's a thing that could exist. Let your mind wander. And by the way, the technology is already out there. Please stop looking at AI.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of thing, is that I would never want to say maybe for that we don't need to look to it necessarily,
Yeah.
but I think there's so much promise for what we can do, and even now there's stuff we can definitely use AI for. I think,
Mhm.
like I'm a big user of ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Like it is the most. I think it's become the most kind of, oh yeah, of course you use that, blah blah blah. But I think it's I'm not. Yeah, this is joking.
It's
I'm
good.
not.
It's become the storyline of AI. Good job.
It kind of has, yeah. Which is a shame to a point, but also it is really helpful. Like
Hey.
I don't particularly ever see myself writing JavaScript again manually, ever.
Mhm.
Like what? Why would I? That now seems like an atrocious waste of time. Kind of anything relatively simple, or in fact, things that I regularly get wrong, I will now tend to pass that way. Um,
Mm.
I no longer have to worry about remembering any of that stuff, or in truth, in fact, just reaching for the same book every time that I have done for what, half a
Yeah.
decade. Instead, I can just go, I need this for this, and instructions on how to implement it. Boom, done.
Mm. It's the
You
same as
know,
the internet.
yeah,
Like, there was a whole conversation like, why are our memories getting shot? Well, it's because we don't have to test them as much. We have the internet. Tell me like your favorite restaurant, and then give me the instructions for it. Give me the map for it. Write down the directions. people aren't as people can't do that as easily because they just say like Google will do it for me.
Mm.
Another tech will do it for me.
This is it. Life has kind of moved on, and I feel like there's always that kind of, I don't know. Or at least maybe I'm pleased to see there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of like on the ground resistance to AI, not from the L&D world. I am seeing it in other spaces, which is sad to see.
We all watched iRobot. We all know Isaac Asimov. Those movies have been done to death.
Yeah, it's
Terminator.
it's interesting. Like AI image generation, I think is a prime example. Are
Yeah.
there some issues to overcome? 100% there are issues to overcome and challenges to work out and impacts to consider. But this whole it's fundamentally bad and it shouldn't happen and it's going to put X, Y, and Z people out of work. It's like, well, it's not fundamentally bad. It's technology. All
Mhm.
technology is just technology.
Mhm.
And do you know what? Yeah, it will put some people out of work. Same as
Mhm.
text-based AI will. Same as motor cars did. Same
Right.
as printing presses did. We're not crying over that. And is it going to be uncomfortable for those who get impacted? Yes, but for the first time, it's largely going to be us. It's going to be creatives and professionals that are impacted. And I
Right.
feel like that is why there's maybe slightly more crying about it. Because when it's just what in Britain we would class as working class people doing manual jobs or working in factories, when they lose their jobs to robots, no great concern. It's great. Lives are improving because of it.
Right.
Once it's our group of people, oh no, 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 you can't be doing that. And maybe this is more of a Britain observation where things are a little where class is a little more in your face, as it were.
Mhm.
It's a historical thing. It's a current thing. It's just a fact. It's also a place where everyone isn't middle class. Like
Right.
if you work for someone else, you're working class. If you work for yourself or run a business, you're middle class. If you're born into it, you're upper class. That's just how it works.
Fair.
It's so for us, it's maybe a bit more on the nose. But historically, whenever it's been manual workers impacted by progress, be it AI, be it robots, be it whatever, machinery of some kind, it's just been progress. Now it's
Mhm.
hitting that creative and professional group. Suddenly it's not progress, it's bad, it's evil, it's unethical, it's
Mhm.
interesting that.
Fair point.
There may be perfectly legitimate concerns, and I agree that especially around like art and creativity, we do need to think about it. But I think we're very quick to villainize it in some categories just because of who it impacts, which is entirely unfair.
Yeah. For God's sake, will somebody please think of the artists?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, shut up.
Yeah, pretty
Like,
much. Yeah.
though somebody who
'Cause-
works in like as somebody who works in the works in the hobby space,
yeah.
I see both elements of it. It's just one of those like once we figure out kind of the right scales of execution and not, because on the flip side to something that is important and valuable, it's the fact that you can go onto a website and literally, and this is literally the ad campaign, is to in 6 seconds have an AI create a piece of artwork of Mario being charged with war crimes.
Why not?
That's actually their thing. And I'm like, okay, curious some copyright elements of that. And, at what point, how does that get leveraged to look as if it's on like official behalf of the company or versus not, or like that's where the scales and the balance and the line is like, who kind of owns this? And if it's nobody, who can use it? And if it's anybody, how does it impact the actual original creators of the thing that you are now manipulating and creating through artificial intelligence?
So
Which I know
here's my
something we've
yeah.
always had that issue with like fan artists, but now anyone and everyone and their mother can do it in 6 seconds without any actual talent.
Hmm. But the actual problem is exactly the same. The scale is different. The problem is exactly the same. Whether you
Mhm,
drew it, whether you did it in Photoshop, or
mhm,
whether an AI did it, the
yeah,
same copyright rules apply. Why would they be any different? That's why I don't understand when people are saying, "Oh, it completely changes." So, no, it doesn't. If you have copyright over something, you actually have copyright over something,
mhm,
then take it to court. It
mm,
is the same as it has always been. Nothing has actually changed. And I do feel like it's, I don't know.
I'll have to
Because
fix the thing real quick. Like, go.
you know, again, I get there are challenges, but, and I'll use Synthesia as an example of this. And what's the, someone will be able to remind me, what's the image creator that runs on Discord that has the little boat on the white background? So someone in the chat will know. These are good people. They're smart. Either way, I've been using that a lot. I'm about to start a Midjourney. There we go, Mr. Suarez to the rescue. Good man. Midjourney. So I've been using Midjourney to generate images for NPCs for a D&D campaign I'm going to run. There is no scenario in which that work, had Midjourney not been available, been outsourced to an artist. Zero,
Right.
zilch, nada.
Yep.
And I would argue that that is the case for the vast majority of what goes through these tools. It
I don't
is
disagree.
not an either or.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the
No, I
same is
definitely don't
true.
disagree.
You know, if I'm using Synthesia to put a video together, there was never the budget and the time to get a camera crew in and an actor and record a video. It's an alternative approach that allows the use of video, whereas before video would just have been a total no-go.
Yeah. I can see, like, from that perspective, it's kind of an elitism on the artist perspective. It's like, what do you mean you wouldn't have paid for me? It's work I would have done. Like, it's, I see
okay,
it.
you know, I have a budget of 50 quid. I need 120 NPCs drawn tomorrow.
Yeah, like,
No,
that's,
you know, it's
you
not going to
weren't getting
happen.
that work. So
It's
I still think there's elements of balance. Like, I
absolutely.
definitely see, like, the majority of it are not using it for crappy things. However, there's also enough crappy people who can make a lot out of
Oh
it.
yeah.
And now that it's become, as with all things, when it becomes more easily accessible, that's when people really start complaining about it. When it starts actually being able to replace a need for talent.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's the case, I think, just down the line with anything. That's why, you know, people worried about, like, Ford, you know, like, or any assembly line thing that was all done by machines. Yeah, it was a matter of, it replaced a need for talent that I had.
Yeah.
And that's the case with artistry. I didn't mind that you couldn't afford being able to draw stuff. It's now that anything can draw anything, you've replaced a need for talent. That sucks. It also creates this weird, like, if you've replaced a need for talent, then why the heck would anybody end up using it to steal other people's work? Which I know, again, niche case, but
this is where I kind of I feel it in the sense of, if I were, and I guess let's flip this around, if I were to choose to write and I'll use the same sort of thing, a D&D source book, historically, I would probably have had to set aside £5,000 to £10,000 for artwork to go into that book. Now I could get a commercial license for Midjourney or DALL-E or Adobe when theirs comes out of beta, whatever it might be, and just go to that and pay for a license that allows me to use the images commercially. Now I can see there where there is a loss of thing. But at the same time, not that long ago, the same group would have said anything that allows more people to create more art and express themselves is a good thing.
Yeah, see Canva.
This is it. It's not a sudden shift. It's always been gradual.
Yeah, that was oh god, that's I actually, I don't know if you know this. I was not allowed to publish my senior thesis, or I would have been failed out of college. And actually how you said it literally sparked that, and I kind of gotta, like, need to rehab, like, the entire AI conversation that I've had for the last couple of weeks. So I graduated from college in 2006. In 2001, we had a bit of an issue, and it led to an economic collapse. Back then, the economic collapse, because we didn't know better, because, you know, internet was still kind of getting started, the first things to go were your marketing teams and your creative teams. That's now a little bit swapped, I think. But as somebody who graduated graphic design in 2006, just at the time that anybody who was dangling by a thread had to cut that thread, I went off into the world and had basically no industry, no company to go work at. And what happened is, with so many big people who were working in big jobs, they had nowhere to go either. They started their own companies. They started their own consulting firms. They're small businesses. Well, what did they all end up needing at some point? They needed logos. They needed branding. They needed me. They needed my job. We went to auction sites, and they'll do it for $20. Those things still suck. It's like your Fivers and whatnot. But at the time, what grew instead were your logo template creators. And your office supply stores had graphic design by, like, you can just go through a system, and it completely replaced everything that I did. And it sucked, because coming right out of college and having and seeing the thing that I spent way too much on just get replaced by nothing, and having to do it, like, not realizing that was a thing that was, like, on the way. That sucks. They did, had they told me, like, 1999, 2000, that or 2001, when I started college, 2001, that, hey, by the way, this is all going to get replaced by the time you graduate, I wouldn't have gone to school.
Well, that's it. That's it.
So that actually kind of has me kind of rethinking. I was like, yeah, like, the accessibility to everybody is a thing that literally upended my ability to get a job in this industry. And that's all that this is really doing. But at the same time, they couldn't have afforded me. It wasn't work that was lost, or they were spending $20 on auction sites. I have to rethink. Now I want to think about that.
But I think that it is a realistic view of AI. Super exciting. All this stuff is generative AI. I think is probably one of the most exciting areas of technology right now. Not the only one, but one of. But if you really want to get into something that's just ridiculous and abstract, battery technology. Oh my god, it's insane. Incredible steps forward in battery, but that's not as exciting to us as AI. Maybe LED has slightly less call for high-powered, long-lasting batteries, but they are coming. So I guess when we look at generative AI, we do need to bear in mind that what we're seeing today isn't the cutting edge. You're never seeing the real cutting edge of technology. We're seeing the stuff that's ready to give to the plebs. You know, the cutting edge of generative AI and all AI is hidden somewhere behind that, learning already. We are part of this huge open beta, effectively, that is going to guide the next 3 or 4 years of development. And sorry, go on.
I was going to say that. Then I guess the question to all those things, and this has been the case throughout history, the underlying question is the economy able to sustain the reduction in human workforce that this thing replaces? Because that is the case every time a piece of technology takes over a job title. Can the economy sustain those people all needing work all of a sudden?
And I think
how do we not even can it? Because the answer is always no.
Yeah.
But, like, how do we? Because the solution then is the same one of why we try not to treat fast food as a career, which is there should be a constant need to grow and kind of develop skills further on. And it was also the same problem when outsourcing. So, like, India and China were big things. The flip of that conversation was a matter of, this just, the mundane and the remedial stuff is over there. This is now kind of your call to action to innovate, inspire, and in fact push things forward. Can we say the same thing with tech here? Is that just kind of another excuse for it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no easy answer, I don't think, but I think any answer that suggests there's a possibility of going back is just not. It's not going to happen. You can't put the toothpaste back in, as they say.
Right.
But you've also got to think. I think it was Noam Chomsky put out whether you like him or not. Bear with me. He's a divisive character. I get that. That's fine. He put out a really interesting article about AI and the threat to human consciousness, etc., etc., etc. And he put out the fact that, hey, look, all this stuff is, technically marvelous, blah, blah, blah. It has problems, etc., etc., etc. But fundamentally, AI is not, cannot, and is not trying to be creative or human. And we kind of all have to remember that. In the, look at language. we kind of think, oh, isn't ChatGPT fantastic? Can put together complex sentences. It clearly comprehends meaning and uses different vocabulary, etc., etc., etc. Yes, but language evolves as we, without necessarily meaning to, change the meaning of words over time.
Mhm.
AI will never do that because AI needs a word to mean a thing.
Yeah.
So it cannot be creative in the human sense. The same is true of artwork.
Mhm.
It cannot be creative in the same sense as when, I don't know, what's his name, picked up a canvas and some oil paints and started painting such and such that now hangs in a gallery somewhere. Can it
Right.
create amazing looking artwork? Yes. But how do we define art? Is it exclusively something that looks nice? If it is, that's a problem. Have you seen Damien Hirst and his half a cow in formaldehyde? Does that look nice? It's definitely art. Does it look nice? We have to, I think, really start thinking about how we define creativity and language and those things. And that's probably more challenging for us than I think we think it's going to be.
Yeah,
Because we
I lived through the era of creative licensing being an excuse to do half-assed work. So
exactly.
I'm
This
familiar
is
with the
it.
concept.
We've
I
got
don't
some.
disagree with it at all. Like I'm very curious to go. I didn't read that article yet, so I gotta go. I
He's
really need to check it out.
really good. I think fantastic. I think he's a bit of a. It's kind of a shame that, sorry, realistically, he's quite old. He's not going to be around for that much longer. His views in the next 2 to 3 decades, I think, will be invaluable. Because he, where political views aside, I'm going to slightly sideline those because I get that it's not really our topic of conversation. His views on human and technology and computing are really fascinating.
How would I find that specific article? No chance
Um,
the AI art.
I would just search for Noam Chomsky AI. It's very recent.
Okay. March 8th. Well, there's an 8th and a 9th. I
Yeah.
assume it's the one that says AI isn't coming for us all, you idiots, because that sounds like something that would be divisive right out of the gate.
There you go. He's he's not someone that when writing will entertain. There might be someone with lesser intelligence than me reading this. It's like, no, you will read at my level, or you will go and learn to read at my level and then come back. It's that's but in fairness, that's a big part of the problem in these discussions is we try and have these discussions at a well, so everyone can engage level. It's like at some point these discussions go beyond that. These are
You need to
really complicated issues and they can't always be dumbed down so that a 6-year-old can get involved in the conversation. Hey, Julie, nice for you to meet us.
That's one of the things, like, we do it in learning as well, and we do it in, like, hell, I do it in hobbies and games. Of the way that I frame it, that has usually been really, like, kind of a nice way to put it, is that sometimes there are some conversations you need to graduate to. Like, like, there's your base level of things. So, like, I can list a number of games, number of board games, and people would just put it under the underlier of board, or the umbrella of board game. Like, why is the board game, why you're thinking so hard about it? And, like, this is when you graduate to. It can be under the umbrella, but, like, graduate to. That's how I put it. Judy, I don't know if you were going to be able to put links inside of the chat. So again, maybe put the title as opposed to a link. Those might automatically be turned off in chat.
Are they?
I don't know if that's a thing that could be like a YouTube safety thing, or like a you need to review comments thing, depending on, or if it's just something that's auto turned off. But, like, I've struggled to be able to put links inside of chat as well. You can, as the host, you can do whatever the heck you want.
Isn't that interesting? Huh, I never knew that.
It's a preventative measure for, like, your spammers and your spam bots that
well, there we go. We're learning some stuff today.
So AI filters.
Yeah. There we go. The banality of evil. There we go. That was the phrase I was looking for but couldn't remember. Yeah, really fantastic article, well worth a read. I think views that are worth listening to as we kind of go into the next phase of this with AI. But yeah, I mean, I guess one of the other things I was really pleased to see on the sentiment survey, though, because we were talking about the sentiment survey, I just a little while ago now. That's where we were. I was really, really pleased to see things like micro learning and not so much virtual reality, but mobile delivery, especially dropping. The metaverse thing's disappointing, but and I just feel like we for a long time we saw the growth in, as you kind of said, the kind of delivery method.
Mhm.
It was all about what are they going to see my crappy e-learning on, and what format is my crappy e-learning going to be in. Kind of felt like so much of what this was about, rather than actually being about those kind of deeper considerations around how do we design learning, what makes for effective learning experiences, how do we become a more useful resource within our business, which is kind of what I think we're seeing with the rise of um, I think that's what we're seeing in the rise of artificial intelligence, because there is no delivery medium that is AI.
Mhm.
Not really. Like, even ultimately, you look at like Synthesia as a prime example, you're still writing the script, or some other element. You're not, content is not being delivered by AI.
Right.
Um, you know, skill-based talent management, yep, that's always been relatively high. Learning analytics, it is nice to see that grow, but I do agree that with what you said earlier,
Mhm.
to be honest. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's nice to see these more conceptual things climbing. I'm
Mhm.
especially pleased to see mobile delivery nearly getting to the bottom of the chart.
I mean,
Um,
if anything, this almost kind of just continues the proof of the outsourcing thing. Of if somebody else can do the mundane and the remedial,
yes.
everything up at the top are also the innovative and the things that we have regularly said the industry gets wrong.
Yep.
So I mean, I guess the silver lining, regardless of which side you're on, like a silver lining is just good. People can spend more of their time doing the stuff that we would love for them to do,
That's it.
which is to do the analytics and the needs assessments.
That's
Go
it.
have AI make your trading. You spend your time on the needs assessment. Get it right the first time. Thank you. KK, bye.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, so I guess here's the obvious next thing. Um, with all of that in mind, with all these focuses with AI and well, specifically generative AI, but also what the future might bring, and with the general shift of the economy, what does the next few years of working in L&D actually look like?
That's so
Um,
tough.
Yeah. I feel like whenever anyone makes a prediction about the future of instructional design, a few years later, they're like an idiot. So this is kind of asking for trouble in that regard. Um, but at the same time, I kind of feel that
I will
fundamentally,
gladly take a shift in instructional designers actually having the job that instructional designer suggests it is, and
okay,
all of the mundane things being offloaded onto various technologies. Because the AI stuff isn't saying storyline is going to be artificially generating your entire storyline project. It's not going to be artificially using a platform for you.
hmm so
So
I think that's interesting because that's actually what I'd like to see. I'd like to see, sorry, development of e-learning no longer being a human task. I want a human involved in the writing of it, a human involved in the defining of it. I'd like a human, reviewing it and making changes. But I see
mhm,
absolutely no legitimate reason for me to sit at my desk and add triggers and build layouts and all
agreed.
that. Why?
The mundane, and I think that's going to be one of the things that the industry has to learn, especially with AI, is that AI doesn't have to mean the last step.
Hmm.
It can mean the first step, and then you go back and QA it when it comes to things that are like creative, or in your case, as you literally just said, of you screwed a thing up when you were writing script and AI was basically a QA tool.
Yep. Absolutely.
um and
But yeah.
that'll be kind of fun. I hope that the industry really quickly doesn't try to look I hope that various industries don't try to look at things like AI and new technology as a way to completely replace every single step.
No.
And that'd be great
Because
for L&D. That'd be great for L&D to be like, let's go and be the manager, like the designers, the managers, and do the conceptual stuff that the AI cannot formulaically understand because they need a thing to be defined, as you
Yes,
said.
exactly.
Oh, I'd love
But
that for
then
you.
when it comes to creating the content, I should totally be able to say, hey, look, AI system, we've
Mhm,
defined that this is what we're going to train. We've defined these content pieces. We've defined that this is our approach. We've defined that this is X, Y, and Z. I want this and I want that and I want that and I want this and I want it delivered like this, blah, blah, blah. I need you to manufacture, because that's what it is at that point. It is
yeah.
manufacturing, automated manufacturing, 3 pieces of e-learning, each lasting 15 minutes. All of them need to be assessed in X, Y, and Z way. This needs
Mhm,
to be like that. Here's the visual design guide for my business. Here are the available graphics that you plug into some kind of bank or whatever. Go.
yeah, that would be
And
great. Can
half
you
an hour.
replace the assembly line that takes up 80% of my job when
Exactly.
I got hired because the other 20%?
Exactly. This is it. And then maybe, let's say, it doesn't do it instantaneously. Maybe that's insane. But maybe 12 hours later, it says, here are at alpha review stage, your 3 pieces of e-learning. Review, provide notes. And because it's kind of like got a language model within it, you can just give it notes as you would a normal developer, and it can go back and make those alterations for you.
Mhm,
And yes, you are perhaps still going to want some level of, okay, it's time for me to manually intervene.
mhm.
Bam, I'm in, I can change stuff.
I think that's gonna have to be that's gonna have to be a learning thing though. Like we're gonna have to really, I've said it. I've fought the fight multiple times that the industry needs to own up the concept of standards, and just like Noam's talking about, like, well, what defines if art is good?
Yep.
We don't know what defines if learning is good, and I think that AI is going to be one of those things that's here to stay because it makes the jobs easier and shortens the time. You
Yeah.
can't say that about like mobile, and you can't say that about any of the other technologies that have been like interesting.
Well, none of them
Interesting.
actually existed. That's the problem.
Yeah, right.
The difference is that AI has already been proven to work. It's
Mhm,
here, it is helping, it is being efficient, it is doing a good job, and
mhm,
it is getting better. None of those other kind of buzz technologies ever really did much.
mhm.
They
Yeah.
kind of
So
danced around, sold some stuff, and then disappeared. So, yeah,
So
I
it's going
think
to be
there's a
one
big
of two
difference.
things then. The future of L&D is either going to continue to devolve in who gives a crap, and now there's a system that does it so we can create as much as humanly possible, or smart companies and good companies are going to stick up for the fact that there's an easy element, and then you can get the real thought leaders, or the real leaders, screw thought leaders, but like your leaders, your challengers, your visionaries. You can take that, we'll just use the quadrant. You can
Yeah.
take the not niche market and give them the chance to shine because now they have the time to do so. It's just going to be up for the industry being able to stick up for whether or not they want to do it. Or if we're
Mm.
going to go back to like AI version 1 is better than version none, we're going to stick to that crap.
Yeah, no, this is it. I think it's that you could only have what I just described, for instance. I think we're probably, and I'm probably wrong in saying this, but I think to what I would be happy with, we're maybe 5 to 6 years away from it being even possible, let alone actually done.
I
Um,
would agree with that.
but interesting actually. Judy brings up an interesting point. So thoughts on those who enjoy the development aspect of e-learning, or companies that don't prioritize creative work in the human sense of the word? So I guess
That's
there's kind
two
of
different
two
questions.
separate issues there. I mean,
we both immediately cracked that.
yeah, it's like the companies prioritizing humans. Yeah, companies prioritizing creativity in the human sense. First of all, I think there are very few. There are some, don't get me wrong, but I think they are few and far between. Um, I do think there is going to be some degree of challenge around what adds value. If
Yeah.
we look at the world we're going into in the next decade, we are going to have some rough economic times. Most businesses are going to be saying, what exactly is the value in a human taking 10 times as much time to do this? Is it 10 times more effective? I don't care whether it's 10 times more creative. I care whether it's 10 times more effective.
Effective.
It's going to be all about return on investment.
Mhm.
And the perhaps sad reality is that once AI gets to the point where it can do development, humans will not be an effective development option.
Yeah.
Because it is not a job that requires great depths of creativity. Not of, I guess the trouble is at the minute when we think about storyline, quite often you're making it do things it wasn't designed to do, or coming up with innovative solutions to the fact that it's fundamentally a bad tool.
Yeah.
Whereas an AI isn't going to do any of that. An AI is going to go, cool, you want tell me what you want, and I will make it for you, and it will be made out of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever else is relevant, right? It's not gonna pansy around with a tool. It's just gonna build it in raw code. Maybe you'll have a visual editor to go with it, like building a website or any other tool like that. Like what is the Dreamweaver? I'm seeing something like Dreamweaver, but mostly automated. So I just don't think there will be room for that. I don't see why we would want that. Like, I get that some people derive like great joy from doing it, but that's not actually a reason for progress to stop. There were people who got great joy out of building everything in the world out of wood. That didn't mean that when plastic and metal became usable tools for us, we went, nope, 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 we've got to keep the wood people happy. Unfortunately, part of progress is that groups of people become unhappy.
Or obsolete, if you want to get dark.
Or, yeah. Oh, totally. What happens when Amazon eventually fulfill their vision of delivering everything by drone?
Yeah.
They got an awful. Do you think they're going to keep the delivery drivers on just so they don't get upset? No, they're going to chuck them the minute the drones are ready.
No, what they're going to do is they're going to upsell. They're going to upsell the personal touch. They're going to upsell like that proper, like, oh, you really want something like hand like delivered. I see. Yeah. So about that, it's going to cost you extra.
That'll be $600, and but even then, I don't think they'll do that, because I don't think there is enough money in it for them to even offer it as a service. I think it'll just be gone. I think the same is true of human development of digital stuff, just because there will be no good argument for saying let's do it slower and more expensive. That's unfortunately, as human beings, we will always be slower, more expensive, and more prone to error than machines.
I kind of wish, and I'm very conscious she's still here, is going back to the scum and villainy. Because what can an AI not just randomly generate? My special formula for things, and you just start seeing like new garbage proprietary, is what it is. You start seeing like the manufacture. You start seeing like the patent problem with pills.
Yes.
Of like, yeah, I know elements of her patent, but I'm going to save my patent by just like adding a thing to it. And I'm going to see this overload of stuff that AI can't generate because it's so specific to me, and only me. At least like, because I'm thinking about like, what would AI replace, which are like soft skills development stuff. So it's like, I can just procedurally generate that. I don't need a human connection for it. If I don't need one, especially if I don't really care what the value of it is.
Yeah.
And like big tools, like the ones that are like certification stuff. Like, yeah, I wouldn't need nearly as much like Photoshop training.
No.
Photoshop, it's well enough AI can generate something like that. But like my Notepad plus with 6 pluses, it's different than 7. So like it's a completely different system.
Totally.
AI can't generate that because it's my system. It's my proprietary thing. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of like more proprietary crap to try to get around the fact that you can't procedurally generate it.
Yeah, I just don't see that being a problem. They'll just outmaneuver it, because you can't make, just looking at our world, you cannot make e-learning proprietary. It's impossible. Loads of companies have tried, and just people use other companies anyway. Because you've still ultimately got to have a basic communication. I think what it is going to do is actually it will end most of the organizations we see today in the space, because there will just be no legitimate need for them.
Right.
You know what?
And they definitely be with a value.
Yeah, this is it. It's they're choked with debt. In terms of tech debt, not I don't know about their financial situation, but they're choked with tech debt. They're all stuck. They're all struggling to iterate on what they've currently got. They can't, I don't think, adapt to something as big as this shift.
Right.
Not without starting again. I must admit, I am of the sneaking suspicion that's what happened to the new version of Adobe Captivate. I think Adobe is smart enough to have looked at the space and gone, what the hell would be the point in launching this? Like,
Not bad.
it's, and so
That's
they've
not
just
bad.
very quietly let it drift.
I like
You
that.
know,
I like
don't know.
Oh, Alexa. I think Alexa.
According to an Alexa Answers contributor.
Alexa, stop.
That's helpful.
Thanks, AI. Good job. Anyway, what happens is people's strengths in being creative per se. We already know. Again, I go right back to the outsourcing craze. Honestly, it's either you become irrelevant, or you have to have some level of evolution of those skills. Because what happens to people who are damn good at their what happens to everybody who's really good at their job, but they basically have that element hired. Usually become their managers. Or they can look in the project management they look in the project management aspect of that thing. It's called the Peter Principle, which is getting promoted to the point of irrelevance. Promoted to the point of the things that you were promoted for are no longer things you do when you struggle like crazy. You just create more avenues for that of, well, all right, the AI is doing it all, but somebody at least needs to tell the AI to go. So I guess I'll be a project manager now, and you don't really know how to do that.
And I think this is the thing, is that there are those who, for instance, will consider themselves great or focused on the e-learning development world, right? And this isn't a kind of that's it's game over. Like no one, even if they think they are, does one thing. Everyone has a set of skills. And whilst one area is changing, it's not a case of you're gonna wake up one day and that is it. Like, as we've seen with all these technology shifts over the years, these things don't come out of nowhere. They don't jump out of the blue, shout boo, and industries disappear. They come up from miles away shouting, hey, this is going to happen. We're on our way. The key, I think, is going to be in the next decade actually paying attention. Because what we're very good at in all industries, but especially in L&D, is putting our heads in the sand and saying, nope, 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 change can't happen. Change will never come for us. Nope, 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 nope. We're totally indispensable until the axe falls. So instead, we do have to start thinking about, why is collaborative, consultative practice on the rise? Gee, is it because machines can't do that?
Yeah, gosh, that's a really good point of the collaborative social learning and artificial intelligence. You can't have both.
This is it. Can AI replace every developer on the planet in time? Yes, absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Can it hold a six-person synthesia group? Everyone else is just synthesia generated, and AI is creating conversations purely around you and you alone.
This is it. Whereas, can it consult with a business and hold those conversations? No, it can't. Can it decide what the right solution is? I don't think it ever will be able to, no, because we often think of human creativity as being, the ability to paint, the ability to draw. Actually, that surface level creativity is what AI can learn to do.
Yeah.
What it can't learn to do is the weird stuff that only a person would think of. Because all that AI artwork is better if a human artist gives the prompts, who thinks in color and shape and volume and form. They can put all that in and create something even more incredible with AI. It's a tool for them as much as a development tool is a tool for us. It's not that developers won't have jobs, it's that their job will change. They will no longer spend a week sat there plugging away, placing elements and typing triggers and troubleshooting. Instead, they'll be taking that and going, okay, how do I turn this instructional designer's wonderful idea into prompts for development? How do I then review this and edit that development process?
I feel like I know what this looks like. I feel like I know what the future looks like. I feel like I got it. I feel like I feel like I know how companies would start talking about it. And I'm looking from a marketing perspective again, because it's just what I do. And I can't get out of my mind what happened with outsourcing. I continue to not be able to get in my mind what happened with outsourcing, which was that just anger towards it. And then companies started responding. They started kind of rebelling against the system. And what was the way they rebelled against this? Did you guys have like outsourcing issues? Like anger against outsourcing?
Yeah.
What was the response from companies? How did companies market their value over outsourced companies? Made in
Interesting.
America, made in the UK, made in whatever. And I feel it's one of those like, I want to like increase the value of my training, and I'm simply just going to do it by pushing on the human connection, a human connection, training by human connectedness. We have actual people who are ensuring that our content caters to the human emotion, because we have human emotion behind it. And the rubber band just bounces again. I feel like that's going to be the rebellion of talking about the value of the human connection.
And interestingly, I think Andres is here kind of saying the same thing. People will monetize the fact that they're using people. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, like, even in that scenario I described there, like for instance, I don't think you can monetize the idea of humans developing digital content. Like, what? There will be more mistakes in our work.
You can make it okay. So you can make it a marketing campaign. You can make it part of your marketing pitch. You're going to reduce it no matter what. Like, it is going to be a reduction in workforce regardless. But you can monetize, as well as you can increase your costs as a result of it. Similar to like my little Amazon joke.
Yeah, but let's forget, how would you market the fact that your development will be worse? Like, objectively, human development is worse.
You ignore the crap out of that. Just like we ignored the crap that made in the USA did not mean that you were getting a better product, or made in anything that is in China. You get crap. You ignore that. You focus on the emotional connection that comes from, I'm helping my fellow man. How often are you marketed made in USA or UK is just better quality? I've seen
to end users. I totally agree. We don't sell e-learning to end users. We sell e-learning to corporate entities. And history suggests corporate entities couldn't give a fuck about human beings.
unless I can show a company that the market trending is turning to lack of value and lack of interest, and even better, your customer base refusing your services because you are AI generated.
Because of your e-learning.
What happened with outsourcing? It's not gonna match.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, is that from our industry, if broadly, I could totally see it, but from an L&D perspective, have you ever, as a customer, gone, I don't like that corporation's e-learning, and so I will no longer be their customer? No,
I've never been an e-learning customer.
But that's me. It's stepping away from that, because the only thing a corporation cares about is its end users, not its employees, not where it sources its employees training from.
That's true. I am really banking on the idea that companies actually would value training to any even minor degree more than what we value it now. So that is fair. But if I were to try to rebel against the system, that would be my angle.
Yeah, and some people will do it, I'm sure, and some organizations will buy into it. But actually, I don't think it'd be a good thing. I don't think we should, as hard as it is when these changes happen, no good comes from clinging to industries that no longer exist. There is a reason coal mining towns all around the UK are terrible places to live in terms of economic opportunity, because they are clinging to mines that no longer exist. They were shut down 50 years ago. That industry is not coming back. Move on.
Yeah.
Rather than clinging, move. You've got to move, unfortunately, and in our lifetimes, for a lot of us, we're going to have to move multiple times. That's just that's the world we signed up for when we all went internet, yes please, smartphones, yes please, social media, yes. We have okayed every step of this. We can't then hit the undo button rapidly when it impacts us.
I guess that also adds to I'm going back to Judy's question of what about those whose strengths are being creative per se, which also creates an assumption that that's all that they would want to do.
Yeah.
That's the only direction they would want to go, and whether or not they only think that because they haven't been guided in a different direction.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, the thing that comes into my head, I was watching an interview that took place in the Dakotas. Dakotas in the United States, South North Dakota. That's oil country. Like entire cities are centered around mines. And they did interviews with people who were out there of like, what do you, it was one of those like, it was one of those kind of gotcha, like, what do you think of the leftist green people are trying to make it, trying to make like renewable energy look like a bad thing. What do you feel about these other types of energies that are going to uproot the entire system that is, how your town functions? And the responses that they got were, it's not a matter of like, we don't do this because we want to work in oil. We do this because this is the best means with which to support our families. If you were to bring a solar or a hydroelectric plant out here and guide us into getting good jobs and guide us into that next stage of innovation, we will happily put in the work in order to do that, to continue to provide for our families.
This is it.
I was like mind blown. I was like, just guidance towards the next evolution of things, which hilariously is going to create a whole new set of L&D crap and scum and villainy of learning.
Well, yes, it will obviously create the scum and villainy, but it will also create a massive opportunity for actual L&D teams internally. Organizations are going to have a massive need to shift what people are doing as jobs no longer exist.
Yeah.
And I think we as L&D have to be ready to kind of model that to the organization, to say, hey, look, this came for us too. And it's great. Let me tell you why.
Hey, you know what that's called there? Reskilling and upskilling.
It's called training. It's called training.
Sorry.
Is what it is.
I wanted to bring it full circle.
I know. But yes, no, it's interesting. I think it's a huge opportunity for L&D once again to show genuine value. And we talk about like the human element. Well, this is a time when we can actually serve the human element, because for the first time in a while, people are going to be, I need to learn to do this new thing, or I no longer have a job directly. It's an immediate need. And so it's a huge opportunity for us.
I like that.
I must admit, I think, is it going to be tricky? Yes. Is it going to be challenging? Yes. Is it going to hurt a little bit? Yes. But on the whole, I think AI is all upside overall.
I don't disagree.
I think it's, like I said, short term, it's going to be some pain, but there always is. You
have to move forward. You got to rip a Band-Aid off sometimes.
Exactly.
It's gonna hurt.
No, this is it. But no, very, very exciting stuff all round, I think. And I think as a look at what the future is, I think that's the biggest thing. I think is that weirdly, I think for once we're in a really powerful position to either be the part of the business that models what to do or what not to do.
I mean, and thankfully, everybody bought L&D businesses, so we're in the boardrooms now.
Well, yeah, someone is. Whether or not someone knows what they're talking about, that's another question, I feel. I think there's a real opportunity there to model it one way or the other. My fear is that people will do that, but the human connection, blah, 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 as a resistance point, as opposed to, okay, so how do we maintain that whilst utilizing these incredible new AI tools?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's simultaneous. It's something to protect, not something to say don't use these tools because human connection.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, human connection shouldn't be forcing us backwards. Again, I've got to look at fast food industry that now have there was literally an entire automated, I think, McDonald's.
Yep.
They're like, this is kind of weird. We also had like our Amazon shops where it's the pay and go. Like, you pop in and then you leave and you don't need anybody there. There's no human there that needs to check you out or anything along those lines. I'm just like, hey, well, we move forward. We shouldn't be like yelling at the industry of like, I think you should hire cashiers for this, so that way we can go back like backwards. Half the time I didn't like cashiers anyway.
How many? Like, I get that at some point cashiers there lost their job. I get that, but I wonder if we asked all those cashiers now, would you want to go back to doing that? How many of them would?
Yeah.
I bet not many of them.
Yeah.
And ultimately, again, when you look at what that question actually is, we would like to offer you a less efficient, more expensive, and less accurate service. How does that sound?
Yeah.
No one would
We want to
ever
do it
choose to
because
go
the
back.
feels.
Yeah, exactly. Like the issue is knowing when to stop as a brand, right?
Mhm.
When have you made things efficient and great and effective, but you can still talk to a human about something complex if you need to? That's
Right.
that's the key. And that banks are a prime example. They sometimes go too far, and you have peopleless banks.
Yeah.
They failed in the UK. Utterly, they failed, and they
Yeah.
ended up shutting them all and going back to a slightly older model where actually a lot of stuff is still automated. But if you book in to speak to a person can speak to you. So
Yeah.
that they found the balance, and that's what a
Isn't
lot
it?
of this is going to be.
In like a
Um,
sillier vein of it, I'm really glad I don't have to find room for a DVD player anymore.
exactly. But physical media, you've got to have physical media.
I've got
That
so
was
much physical.
uproar at the time.
Yeah, and now I have no room for physical media, and now my physical media is in the basement, and that was a whole journey in order to get there.
Exactly.
Gur
This
arg.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of comments here from Judy. Sometimes I feel like my limited conscious memory of the pre-digital world morphs my perspective in ways that can be damaging.
Wait till
I
you learn about VCRs.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yes and no. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I
Damaging
feel
though.
like yeah, see. I disagree with that. I feel like sometimes that's the criticism of younger generations. They don't remember, blah blah, or they don't know this, blah blah. It's like, yeah, exactly. So maybe you should listen to them because they aren't just viewing it through nostalgia glasses.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
all it does, Judy, for you is it makes it a little bit harder for you to be as empathetic. But you can still be sympathetic. You can like you that's
this
it.
is it.
That's all that it is. So it's like, hey, I can respect that things were harder for you at a time. You did have to walk uphill both ways with no shoes. I
The
have a bike.
Yeah, the great news is neither of us have to do it now. That's called progress. Well, hey,
Yeah, exactly.
you
So I
know,
wouldn't look at it as damaging, Judy.
yeah,
Just seriously look at it as a matter of empathy and sympathy.
absolutely.
Makes me curious of generations raised with AI even more. Normalized,
Yeah,
integrated than now, and how that impacts the workforce. It's the same. I would say it's the same way that it always is. If you're going to be raised with AI, like if my kid is raised with AI their entire life, by the time they're an adult, all they're going to have to deal with is just a more innovative system of AI, or a more innovative system of whatever AI, whatever takes over AI. We
this
If
is
there's
it.
anything that can screw up a system that makes a heck of a lot of sense, it's humans.
This
We
is
will
it.
find a way to screw with AI to a point where it gets worse or better that
Yeah,
creates a job market.
this is it. And I feel like there's a certain kind of hilarity to that as well. The knowledge that if someone born in 10 years' time watches this further into their life, they'll be like, what? What was all this concern about?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
you lot were idiots. Like, this is, we've always got to, especially around technology and fast moving technology, we've got to remember that everything we think today will look stupid tomorrow. And the day after that, it'll look downright idiotic.
Yeah.
We are tomorrow's punchline when it comes to technology and our views on it today. So, and
Yeah.
that has always been the case. That will always be the case. And so we
Like,
can't really worry about it too much.
how many tools did this replace? And
All those
how are we still
calculator
trying to
salesmen.
innovate the living
Oh,
crap out of these things?
this is
Eh,
it.
Innovative.
It's a funny old thing, but I think I think that when we talk about, we kind of covered all our topics in one big conversation, really, didn't we? Rather than having
Yeah,
distinct
it
ones
all
tonight.
centered. I
It's
mean, I think
yeah,
it's centered. I would say it's centered around like AI, and also centered around kind of our definition of value,
mm,
definition of creativity, definition of innovative. I'm still very, very curious to see whether or not our industry is going to. I think really, man, thinking about like where this all goes is it's going to be can our industry define good? How do we define something good, something valuable, something worthwhile? Today's hot trend is tomorrow's metaverse.
sorry, I saw that coming. I couldn't stop laughing.
It's so good. But like we have to
Exactly.
define our trend is good, and then we have to define tomorrow's metaverse is good. And is good gonna simply just be quick? there, which is what good nowadays seems to be, or are we actually going to include words like meaningful and effective in our definition of good? And if we can do that, then we've got something to do with this technology that doesn't make it so it replaces everybody. And
This
if
is
we
it.
can't do that, then this replaces everybody.
This is it.
And
Because
but the
interesting.
low bar that it can set, and like the lowest bar that it can reach is the highest bar of instructional design and training. And right now, I don't think it's terribly far off.
Yeah.
And we just need to prove there's more.
Because for me, that was the death knell of the metaverse. The minute they started saying that, oh, this is what all like facilitated training will look like. There'll be no need to get together in person ever again. Ridiculous claim, killed the technology. I honestly think, from an ID perspective, that's what did it. Look, IDs have been trying to get rid of facilitation-based training for a long time. We know it ain't gonna happen. So don't even pitch your product in that space. You would have to be insane to say that that was a reality. AI, I think, has been very clever in that it has it's got this huge vision, but none of it is, I'm going to replace all of this. No, I'm going to make this quicker, easier, and more efficient and more reliable. So where's the AI is not putting out stuff that is, I'm going to change the game. It's, I'm going to make everyone better at playing the game. That to me is the big difference in what those two technologies are kind of pitching to us. And I feel like that's why AI isn't the metaverse situation.
I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the quick, fast, cheap. You can only pick two, or not quick, fast, cheap. Cheap, fast, good.
Yes,
cheap, fast, good. Cheap, fast, good. You can only pick two, and AI can provide all three. There needs to be what's the fourth? Like what's the thing it can't do?
Well, it allows us to now start thinking about what else. Technology now, hopefully in the near future, ceases to be the stumbling block. I was on a panel this week, actually. It was really interesting. It's like, so what's the, when we look at the future, what's the most exciting thing? And I said there, for me, the most exciting thing is the fact that I think we're finally approaching the point where technology is no longer the thing that holds us back. Because even today, quite often we have conversations around, oh, the tool can't do that, or, oh, the platform doesn't support X, Y, and Z. But it feels like one thing AI can definitely do for us all is to remove technology as a barrier to actually coming up with creative, innovative, and effective solutions. We can just say, hey, we want to do this. Can we do it? Yeah, we'll get the AI to do it. But that's where, that to me, that is where this comes in. It allows us to bring our ideas into reality so much easier, and allows us to try things with less damage done. If I put an idea out and it sucks, we know the next day rather than after 6 months of development. That's
oh God, I
huge.
just figured. Oh no, I had a revelation. I've literally 17 minutes. Son of a gun.
That's all right.
I just realized another thing that this really does is that it opens up L&D to other industries that wouldn't normally do it. And I'm going to give you an example because I literally had this meeting right before this call, which was I'm helping out a judge program for a card game. Because right now, like there's a judge program for a card game is like learn rules and try to remember all XYZ things. And one of the things that nobody ever thinks to like talk about and go into is like the human connection aspect of it. Like how, as the person who is judging an event, do you deal with like an altercation? Do you deal with somebody who just doesn't agree with your assessment, who is providing you maybe only half of the information? I can't show you like a board and give you a formulaic way to analyze it, but I can teach you like the skills to be like, I should probably look at this and this and this and this. And like no hobbyist has ever seen quote training. It's literally the whole thing with the Frosthaven book that I did during IDTX of a garbage training model. Like those things are terrible, and why it always beats us as ID people. But having an AI system to be able to go through like an instructional design kind of method of teaching you like on a game, or teaching you how to judge or event coordinate or like all these things that are just people taking their passion and turning it into something that is much more work focused. Something like ID and L&D gives me the opportunity to dramatically heighten those standards and amplify people who don't think of it as a job, and in doing so they don't think of training being a part of this process of getting better at it, because you only do training for jobs, right?
That's it.
Oh man. That's
There we
actually
go.
really cool. That actually really excites me now.
Well, that is awesome. Well, hey, look, I feel like we've covered, or certainly discussed in great detail, our 3 big discussion topics.
I feel like I completely changed my I've like damn near changed my not entire, but like a lot of my thoughts on AI as a result of this.
But I think that's one of the things that I quite like about not just this show, but like conversations in general about this stuff. Is I think we've got to have discussions about what it means outside of the specific realm of just our industry, but then also how that does relate back to L&D and how it relates to the people that we serve. And
We need people.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I can't have this conversation with Synthesia.
No, exactly. This is it. This is it. Hey, look, I want to say just quickly as the end of this episode, obviously, IDTX was at the start of this month, and it was a year 3. It was a pretty successful event. There was only really a couple of major hiccups, and they were overcome. And I want to say a big thank you to you, Joey, actually, obviously for stepping in very last minute to cover some sessions for us. I know Joe Suarez is in the chat, or has been in the chat as well. Thank you for running some sessions. The fantastic Ricky Fisher also ran a whole bunch of sessions for us. So thank you. It was a really good couple of days, or few days, I should say. There is actually a bit of a reflection video coming out next week about kind of how it went and what went well and what could be better and what the future looks like for IDTX. But if you're in the audience, you're watching this, you weren't able to join us live, all the sessions, every single one of them, bar 2, one that didn't run and one that where there was an issue with the recording, are now all there on the channel to be watched at your leisure. But
Awesome.
thank you once again for joining us. And if it is something you want to support in future, you can support it on Patreon for just £1 a month. So it all helps be able to run that event every year.
Rock it out, yeah, and go back and watch those, because I've gone back and watched a couple. I was like, okay, cool. I like they're fun topics. They're different. They're different topics, and that's what makes it really cool. And I've been able to share it with a couple of people as well. I'm like, I want to get into ID stuff. I'm now finally helping somebody who is a teacher. I've helped like 2 people who are teachers transition into ID.
Nice.
It's actually been kind of fun.
Do you know what? I think it's one of the great joys in sometimes what we get to do is help people get started in this career. Whether they're coming from teaching or not, it's always quite a nice thing to be able to do that. Yeah, it's but so hopefully there's some good resources there. Joey's especially, I have to say, is a great session. Really, really great session. Awesome. Well, look, thank you all very much for joining us for this end of March ID update. Keep your eyes peeled for content coming out this month. As I kind of now am working far less hours, I'll actually be able to keep a relatively sensible content schedule, which will be really nice.
I'm also working far less hours, but not by choice, and I'm not thrilled about that. But I'm hoping to bring back Training as Blank.
Oh, very exciting! So, for those who don't know, Training in Blank is Joey's old L&D channel.
Yeah, it was awesome. I did like a short. It was supposed to be a longer blog, but the idea was it's a pun, and actually it's multiple perspectives of a pun, because there's a lot of instructional designers and trainers out there who didn't realize they suddenly had to become graphic designers. So I look at production design elements from I look at production design elements from an instructional designer perspective, and talk about how some of the rules or changes and what to do when you're training. Your canvas is literally blank.
Yeah, and I would say all the videos are great. Actually, they're well worth a watch. Even if
I did 3 to make Corgi when she's a pup.
Yeah, time has passed, doesn't it? Blimey, yeah. I don't quite know what 3 Joey and Tom means.
Oh, no.
Well, if it's important or you want to have a chat, you can message me afterwards. That's all cool. But hey, look, thank you all for joining us. Joey, as always, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And other than that, we will see you all next month.
Definitely. Cheers,
Till
everybody.
then, cheers. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT.